This is Mordhau. We're here on Xbox Series S. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well, and if you are buying this exciting knight-based action adventure multiplayer battling game, consider using the affiliate link in the video description. It takes you to the Microsoft Store, supports the content. So yeah, what are we getting here on the Series S? It looks like it's 1080p, 60 FPS. There is the option to adjust the field of view in the settings if you'd like to do so. And you can change the perspective from pressing start and going to change camera perspective if you want kind of like over the shoulder. Well, it's kind of at your back angle. I don't really like this perspective and how it's done in this game, but I thought I would show it off for those that are, you know, kind of interested in that aspect of basically the game and everything like that. So we're just going to change back to first person so I can actually see things, and I accidentally dropped my sword. That is awesome. Oh, good thing conveniently there's a phalanx right here. Okay, that's good. So yeah, if you're not familiar with this title, it is a multiplayer game up to 64 players where you are doing medieval combat. There's also like a 48-player server option if you'd like to go there, and some other smaller based modes, and we'll talk about all that as we go through things. So there are some performance issues, it seems, across kind of the board here. Series X, Series S. This is like a local match, so I would imagine online stuff might be a little less demanding, but yeah, and some slower texture loading in regards to the environment in some areas. But, you know, it is actually like a pretty decent looking game, at least I think so. Even on the Series S here, it does actually look, you know, I think visually quite decent. And I think the aesthetics of it are kind of nice. And it's very gory and very violent, and, you know, it's interesting. And I like that we're getting more options, you know, like this is not necessarily something like new, if that makes sense. Like we've got a few sort of like hack and slash melee combat type multiplayer games now, which is great. You know, like obviously Chivalry would be a big comparison point for me because, well, you know, I've played quite a bit of Chivalry, and there's also like, you know, Mount and Blade. So we have some different choices, and this was one I always was hearing quite a lot sort of about gameplay-wise, so it is interesting to see it available on the console platforms. So yeah, what exactly is the main setup here? There's a bunch of different modes. So this is Frontline, where it's a bit of a tug of war. You know, you're going back and forth, kind of taking the positions and stuff. There's Invasion. There's things like deathmatch, team deathmatch, skirmish. It's sort of like a round-based thing where it's like once everyone's died, the round has ended, and whoever team is left kind of gets the point. And there's a swordsman battle, and you know, there's like a variety of different like options. And what's cool is you can do it all like online, or you can also do it locally as well. You can set it up for up to 64 players and have bots if you'd like to. So you can play this game entirely offline if you'd like to. Although it doesn't seem like you get really progression for doing offline, because this game does have like a robust amount of like customization, personalization in regards to like adjusting or making your own class and stuff in the game. Like there's preset classes here. This is the Scoundrel, where I've got a Rapier, and I've got a Firebomb, and there's a Bear Trap, which is hilarious. But that's sort of the thing, is like if you are playing this from like, you know, that perspective of wanting to make your own classes and stuff, it is a little kind of annoying that you're not getting the progressional stuff. And that might change a little bit later on, I'm not too sure, but that's just kind of how it is now. But yeah, you're able to do it locally, which is cool. And, you know, allows me to get kind of an in-depth look at this one, I guess, and everything like that. And then there's, for multiplayer, there's a server browser, which is awesome. And, you know, quick searches, there's a couple different options. There's also another mode that I wanted to talk about too, which I think is pretty cool. It's a Horde mode, So it's kind of like a lazily done horde mode, but also kind of really well done too at the same time. You work together, and you know you can search online or locally, and you are able to essentially like you're protecting like a noble, and you have to protect them from waves of like peasants. And you start with like a little, be like basically nothing. And the same with the peasants too. Like the peasants will come at you and they'll just be like hurling rocks and stuff, and eventually they'll be, you know, they'll be swordsmen and then bowmen, and you know, there's a lot of different sort of like ways that that kind of like pans out, if that makes sense. So it is interesting that you do get that mode. And then as you survive the waves, you'll be making like money in the game. So you're here able to buy things. And you can also sell stuff too. You know, you buy a sword, you can like sell it to help you buy another sword. And there's like a little goblin that like takes your stuff, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's like a horde mode where you got like a cut off area. And then there's just this huge array of like weapons, like bows and swords, and you could buy armor too. I do wish that it had maybe like a little bit more of a tower defense type of flair would be kind of cool to that mode, but it works, you know. It'd be cool to just maybe do some like more traps or complex stuff, but yeah, it's just kind of funny having this like flurry of enemies coming in at you that are like, you know, sometimes hurling rocks and sometimes actually a little bit more guarded and powerful. So I did actually think that mode was pretty cool. I think you can have some fun with that one. I am so sorry. Hammerweld has fallen. So yeah, that aspect of it's kind of intriguing. So as you can tell, a variety of different, well, really just like game modes you could play on, which is awesome for this type of thing. It's good to have a variety. I do think the main objective modes are going to kind of be the popular things amongst people. And that's going to burn a lot of teammates, I think. But yeah, that's burning a lot of teammates. But I think that these other side modes might attract some people as well. And it is funny doing the deathmatch in like a tiny arena and just cranking it up to 64 players and just having everyone in like a tight space just spotting on each other and slashing and hacking. Very, very entertaining. So yeah, what else is there? Maps. There's a good amount of maps with a good amount of variety to said maps. Like, you know, we've got ones that are more desert, like we've got snow maps, we've got castle maps, we've got kind of like forest maps. Like there's actually a really good selection of them, and they work well for the different modes, whether they're like larger in scale like this where you're progressing, or if they're smaller and more like just kind of brawling deathmatch, you know, maps and stuff. They actually do offer a lot of different like design and some good scale to them, and they keep the flow of battle going well. Trying to find like a certain area for something. Yeah, because it's not just like, you know, you can run around on foot, but there are horses and also camels you can ride too, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, there's some interactivity. So like unlike Chivalry, you're not interacting like you are in that game. So like in Chivalry, if you're not familiar with that game, you are like, you know, you can pick up like bread and like throw it at people, and you can, you know, pick up like all kinds of stuff. This one, it does have things like ballista. You saw like rock kind of like letting down earlier, where you can like pour rocks down. And you know, there are some like, you might find like a torch you can pick up and you can hurl at somebody and stuff like that. So like, you know, it does have some layerings of that kind of functionality to it, but it is a little bit more straightforward, focused on the slashing, the hacking, the combat element of play. So, yeah, you know, that's just kind of how that is for interactivity. I do like that this one does have a variety of weapons, too. Like, it definitely seems like they've ported over, like, a matured version of the game with lots of, like, content and things. Here we go, that's what I was looking for, the camel. These things are so awkward, but it's kind of fun to do horseback and camels in this. So, yeah, good amount of maps, good amount of game modes. Good selection of weapons. Like, it's got like things that are like maces and different types of swords, and you know, and then you can, like I said, you can customize your like class. So your class will have, you know, different types of weapons or like side gear that you can use, and you kind of perform different like functions in the battlefield too. There's like some areas where you're sort of able to like lightly build things and stuff, and you know, that's kind of nice. I like that. And I think it's just got like a lot going on to it. Another element that is varied too is like the costumes, like the armor and stuff for the characters. You don't see that too well because we are playing, like we are playing like this sort of team-based thing, right? There's the red team, the blue team. You can see some variation in their armors, but when you do like free-for-all and solo and stuff like that, where, you know, everyone's kind of for themselves, you really do get to see a variety of different like colors and costume designs. Also in the Horde mode too, I think that's kind of nice as well, as like, you know, like they'll have these like nice felty green kind of caps, some of the characters, or, you know, vibrant colors. It's not just like a straightforward color palette. You get to see a lot of different costume things, which is kind of nice, because it just makes it feel more realistic and varied, where you've got like different factions going off against each other. Yeah. So, and like I did mention earlier, the game is quite violent, quite gory. Like the dismemberment stuff is pretty well done, and, you know, everything like that is kind of intriguing. Like, it really is quite gruesome at times, which is good if you want to play like a medieval game that's a bit more realistic in that sense. I did find that like the combat is a bit sort of simple, if that makes sense. Like, you kind of attack and then you block, and, you know, you can like kick, and, you know, there's like a taunt like system, like taunt stuff, and we just did a little flourish there. But it is sort of like, I don't know, I found my weapons getting like caught on stuff in the environment, which I guess maybe would make it more dynamic to some. I feel like I don't have quite as much combative control as I say in something like Chivalry, and you really can get overwhelmed in this game. Like, that one's got a bit of a system where there's like a bunch of people on you, you get a bit more of a fighting chance, but like this one, if there is multiple people going after you, you're gonna die. You know, there's not much you can do about it. So I do find the combat a bit more straightforward and simplistic in that regard, which is not necessarily like a bad thing, as to say, but, you know, I do think that aspect of it could have been a bit more intense. But we should switch over to another map just so that there's a bit more variety in the scene that you're seeing. So yeah, this is a different map setup, a different map level, just so you can see kind of a different scenario in play. I'm hoping we don't get like a rewind of the last time I went on this map, because all the characters kind of got like bunched up and stuck in one spot, which was kind of funny. But, you know, it just shows some more variety within the environments, essentially, is what the goal was here. So yeah, I do think, you know, from a gameplay perspective, it's kind of decent. Like, it's got some neat elements to it. It does some different stuff with the game modes. I think the multiplayer stuff can be quite fun. It'll be interesting to see if this one really does sort of like, I guess you would say, catch on and really gets going in regards to like having a community of players. Like, you can play it all locally, which, you know, is fine. They're all dying because they got too close to the spawn. They just kind of march onwards into death. It's hilarious. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's kind of a little bit more simple combat than I was expecting. I do like the variety of maps. I do like the variety of weapons. I do like the variety of tools. I think this one can be kind of fun at times, but yeah, I don't know. I just like, I feel as though I've played, you know, like I said, a variety of these medieval kind of knight multiplayer games at this point, and it'll be interesting to see if this one kind of finds like a niche within that, because I do really quite like my Chivalry at this point. I don't necessarily love to directly just like compare games, but where it is a kind of a niche kind of like field of gameplay, I think it is like a bit of a fair thing to kind of be like, you know, this is what it's similar to gameplay wise, so you can actually have like a little bit of a basis of comparison. And yeah, I don't know, this one is intriguing. I think the potential here could be good. I think they do have a lot of stuff. I am curious to see like long-term extra stuff that gets added to it and that, and how well it takes off. But it does have some really gruesome, neat, tight battle scenarios. It does have a good variety of things you can use to like battle on, battle in, use to battle your foes. I think that aspect is something strong for it. It's just like, it is a matured game with content, right? Like, it doesn't feel very bare bones. It's got a lot here. And I do love that Horde mode. It is very, very entertaining to sit there and play that Horde-like area. I think some people will get a real kick out of that. And I guess the biggest thing is just going to be, like, how dynamic are the people that you're, you know, kind of fighting against? You know what I mean? Like, what kind of, like, strategies are people going to get, like, really intense and into this one? You know, what does that part of the game look like? How does that sort of evolve? You know, what kind of tactics do people use online? How does this one sort of shape up is the biggest question, because I am curious to see, you know, how wild it gets, you know. I'm just... Because the dynamics of playing, like, locally and playing against, like, other players online is just really quite a different setup, because they do different things and, you know, different strategies and whatnots. And yeah, I am wondering how intense, like, flanking and everything gets. Because I like the modes in this too, but I do also hope there's something that, like, really quite hooks me in as a neat kind of mode, because it is sort of just battling and hacking and slashing with very, very light kind of, like, objective stuff, right? If that makes sense. So I think this is one of those ones where it'll either, you know, offer a new niche for you in regards to, like, intense melee-based combat, or it's just kind of another option. So that is the most fascinating part of this to me, is just being, like, the reception to this one when there are other options. Because it's almost joining the game a bit late, if that makes sense. You know, Chivalry is established, Mountain Blade's established. And it's like, how popular is the, you know, the multiplayer hack and slash sort of genre of gameplay? That is the big question. And like I said, it's nice to have different multiplayer games. It really is. It's crazy because, you know, even a generation or so ago, like, we literally wouldn't have games like this, and now we get big, you know, 64-player massive night battling games with horses and, you know, decently realistic environments and aesthetics and gruesomeness and combat, and, you know, it's very visceral and action-packed, and yeah, it's really cool that we actually have these things. It's just a matter of, is there enough people to, like, support all of these things is the biggest question. So that will be my kind of thought on it, I guess. But I do like what they have here. Like, it is kind of cool. It is kind of neat. I'm just used to the more, I guess you would say, dynamic, intensive combat of, like, Chivalry. I really like that game, you know. That's why it always keeps coming up here. It's just, I really do like that one, and I see so many kind of similarities. Like, this almost feels like a middle ground between Chivalry and Mountain Blade, almost, just in regards to how it, like, feels and plays in that. But I have really heard a lot of people talking about this one over time, so I am curious to see if that translates into it being a big success console-wise. That is the biggest question. But the Series S version, not too bad. You know, like, visually, actually, looks decent, which is nice. It's clear enough. I mean, it's a little jaggedy around some spots and that, but, you know, it does also seem to perform decently well, which is nice. Yeah, I was kind of wondering if there would be any sort of, like, real drawbacks or whatnot, but that doesn't quite seem to be the case here. So, yeah, I think they've kind of offered a decent port for this one on the Series S side of things. It's going to be interesting to see how much it is embraced and prepared for battle. Because it does offer quite a lot. Like, it really does have a lot of content to it. A good amount of modes. Doesn't stretch itself too thin, but it does offer some good variety. And it's just going to be neat to see what people kind of flock to. You know, 64 players is a lot to fill a server with, so it's going to be intriguing to see if, like, the smaller stuff kind of takes over, or if the big stuff finds a home and really is something that people continue to sink their teeth into. Yeah, that is the biggest question there. Oh, geez, that's not good.